series. They're going to get back for two. India at home. Lords goes wild.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the 81 All Out podcast. This is Siddhartha Vaidyanathan at Sidvi on Twitter. And today we are going to talk about the forthcoming test series between India and South Africa. 3 tests to be played in Vizag, Ranchi and Pune. And to talk about the series in the preview, we have one of the 81 All Out regulars, Ashoka at ABVan on Twitter. Hi, Ashoka.
Hey, Sid. Hi.
And also joining us today, we have a special guest, Rohit Shankar. He's a freelance cricket writer and he's also the co-founder of Crick Ecstasy. That's CRICXTASY. He's a freelancer and a hardcore cricket fan, and he also seems to be a hardcore fan of the South African cricket, always tweeting about the Proteas. Hi, Rohit. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Siddhartha. Hi, Ashoka. Yeah, I'm a huge Proteas fan.
Can you talk a bit about that? When that began, and what was maybe your early impressions, and how did you become such a big fan?
Yeah, the first memory I have of watching cricket is probably the 1996 World Cup, and South Africa had just come in as one of the favorites because they had done particularly well in the 92 World Cup. And I was too young to notice what was happening in the league stages or something. But just from, the kind of jersey they had a really bright color, and the Alan Donald came in with the white cream all over his face, and somehow they caught my attention. And I remember feeling really sad when they lost to West Indies. So my association with South African cricket probably started then, but it gradually progressed. The 99 World Cup really hurt big. And then by then I was a huge fan, and I was always following the Proteas.
Yeah, so coming to this test series, India versus South Africa, just to draw a little big picture, has been quite a grand and storied rivalry. South Africa, perhaps among all the visiting teams, have one of the best records in India. They haven't lost as often as other teams, and even when they have lost series, they have usually competed. I mean, if you take out the 2015 series, that's the most recent series that they played in India. Apart from that, almost every series they have won a test, and even if they haven't won a test, they have run India close. Interestingly, they have done that with their fast bowling and seam and swing bowling rather than with spin bowling, as you would expect, as you would think that would happen. Dale Steyn has, of course, been a huge reason why South Africa has done well in India in the recent past. But even before that, if you go back to the 90s and early 2000s, you've had a number of bowlers. I mean, I remember even a Nanti Hayward was one of the bowlers who had a very good series. Donald had a fantastic series in 96, 97, De Villiers as well. So, Rohit, can you talk a bit about that? India, South Africa often seems to go under the radar in terms of great cricket rivalries, but it has been one, right? And of course, at home, South Africa India have not yet beaten South Africa. So in a way, on balance, you can say South Africa have historically an edge.
Right. South Africa have done really well compared to other non-Asian countries in India. And as you said, Dale Steyn has been a big factor in recent times. Hashim Amla in 2010, he had a fantastic series. And even before that, in the 96 tour, Lance Klusener on debut picked up a 8-wicket haul. And there was Sean Block and even Mackay Antony and Alan Donald had great series. Nanti Hayward, he had a brilliant series. So, South Africa have competed really well. And if like you said, they have hardly come in with a spin-heavy attack. I think in 2004, they came in for the test series without Nicky Boye, who was their frontline spinner, because he was hesitant to travel to India. And in the first test, they played Robin Peterson. But in the second test, they had Justin Ontong, who was just a part-timer as a main spinner in the team. So they lost the test, but then they were really relying on their pace attack rather than spinners to compete in India, and they have done really well.
Yeah, Ashoka, thoughts on that? I mean, South Africa have been really good, right, when touring India?
Yeah, surprisingly, they have been like a competent team too. Because I was checking the stats, they have the highest win percentage in Asia of all the non-Asian teams. So I would put down not to spin, but they have cracked at least seam bowling up front and reverse in the middle overs. That is a huge factor. Especially that credit would go to Stein, right? So he's kind of the driving factor there. The going under the radar part is because I think they always have this quiet persona about them, right? Like there is, it also is the South African ecosystem, which kind of is subdued rather than sensationalist. If any India South Africa match, it would be the Indian commentators who will be usually going up over the top, and because the cricket is of a high quality and lot less off-field incidents. That would be my guess why it always seems like it goes under the radar. But we always end up getting excellent tests. Like the last South Africa India series, which South Africa came to India, that was a disaster. But we can safely discount that. And if you look historically, yeah, sure, it has been always cricket-wise, it has been a great series.
Yeah, also historically, there's been quite a deep connection between the two countries, cricket-wise and sports-wise. I mean, India were a very strong proponent of, the anti-apartheid policies back then. And Ali Bakar, who was the, head of the South African board, was very keen that South Africa, when they return to international cricket, come to India first, which they did. They played a one-day series in India on return. That was their first international series on return. And when Clive Rice captained, it was a very emotional moment for them. Also, the first team to tour South Africa after their readmission was also India. And the famous first ball where Jimmy Cook got out, that was also, before that ball, there was also an emotional moment. I remember one of the former All India radio commentators, Suresh Saraya, who was on that tour, and he mentioned that the atmosphere before that first ball of Test cricket in South Africa was so electric that he had tears in his eyes, and it was an absolutely emotional moment for the team. And so, yeah, India and South Africa have shared quite a lot in those terms. Of course, in recent years, there have been quite a few negatives as well, with the boards squabbling for various reasons, and for the BCCI to have problems with Harun Lorgat, etc. But I think overall, if you look at the big picture, there is a deep connection there. The series is called the Freedom Series. Of course, Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela have been, the architects of both the nations and the people who brought the freedom to both the nations. So let's move to the series itself. Rohit, talking about the South African team, the ones that have usually visited India have been usually stacked with some big players and top players. This one too has some very good players in them. I mean, in Rabada, you probably have one of the best bowlers in the world, and you also have some very promising players. But in terms of the batting, you think perhaps one of the most inexperienced and raw batting lineups to come to India?
Yeah, South Africa are really inexperienced this time. Like aside from Faf du Plessis and Dean Elgar, probably Quinton de Kock is still up and coming in the experience category, and even Themba Bavuma, but they are really inexperienced. But I wouldn't go to the extent of saying that this is probably too inexperienced a lineup to pull off a win, because in 2004, if you remember, South Africa came in with a very inexperienced squad. They had Andrew Hall opening the innings as a makeshift opener, and he went on to make a huge 100 at Kanpur. And the kind of preparations that went into those series is probably different. And now they have somebody like an interim coach like Enoch Nkwe coming in. The setup is completely different this time around. And I don't think experience is a huge factor, because last time they came in with such an experienced team and they were completely bowled over on wickets that were turning a mile. But they have prepared really well. They had sent an A team pretty early to India, and many of the test players were part of that. And since the 2015 series, they have been conducting spin camps in the country on a yearly basis, and most of these players have come for the spin camps, have had inputs from local coaches in India. They even have Amul Muzumdar in their ranks this time as a batting coach. So yeah, they might be inexperienced, but you cannot discount them on these surfaces.
And in terms of practice, they have basically there's been one practice game, and even that has been curtailed by rain quite a bit. I mean, we are recording at the end of that game. I mean, we are recording on the Friday at the end of that game. But overall, I mean, for the little bit that they were able to play, there were some good signs both in the batting and bowling front.
Yeah, Aiden Markram had a really good outing. Like even in Mysore in the game against India A, he hit 160 or something, and in the practice match he came in and hit another 100. So those are promising signs for Markram and South Africa in particular, because the opening alongside Dean Elgar, they needed somebody solid. And Markram, though he has been really good in South Africa, the only series he has played outside the country is in Sri Lanka, and he struggled there. So and there is this theory that he has struggled against spin, and by coming to India and putting up knocks like this, Markram has shown that he can belong. So I think that's a really promising sign. The other one is Temba Bavuma, of course, and he had attended the spin camps and played the India A game. So Bavuma is also somebody who plays spin really well. He uses his feet well. He sweeps well. We even saw in the T20 series where he was a rotating strike really well with the Kock. They've had enough time in India. Like most of the test players have been here early. And like I said, they played in the India A series. So they have got a hang of the conditions.
Even Markram, right? Like we have been waiting for him to explode. Like when I say we, it is especially me, because I've been kind of fascinated with his batting. I think he's a superior batting talent for which the returns have been very less. I would like for him to have a great series, like a 3-test, 400 run, 450 run series. And that would really help South Africa in the mid to long term, because Dean Elgar, if you see, he's 32. You can expect another 3-4 years out of him because he has restricted himself to the test format. Apart from him, they need kind of a mainstay, and even Faf is like 35 now. You can't expect both of them to stay for like a long-term prospect. So it is imperative that Markram kind of stamps his authority in conditions in which he has struggled. And the other person is, of course, Temba Bavuma. He has been kind of that below radar player, but he's a solid, dependable middle order bat. And remember that De Kock has been playing for the last 10,000 years, and he's just 26. So I think it is high time also that De Kock lives up to the billing. We have seen him do well in ODIs and in the recent T20s as well. He has proved that shorter format is something that he can handle. But it's been a while since I've seen him like really own the test scene. And he has to actually come good. This is actually, I mean, Indian conditions are no longer that foreign to him. He has been playing in the IPL. He has come down here and he has had a good number of series here. So I think these three players, if they can kind of step up, we always know that Elgar can be dependable at the top and Faf is ever dependable. So those two are not the points. I mean, those two are not the pain points for the batting. These three, if they step up and kind of hit a couple of 50s or even a couple of hundreds, this is going to be a closer series than India would have anticipated.
Yeah, in 2018, South Africa went to Sri Lanka for a 2-test series, and a few of these batsmen were there on that tour. They were, of course, not as experienced then, but even then, when we spoke to Andrew Fidel Fernando, the ESPN Cricket for Sri Lanka correspondent, he was talking about how in the very first test they were playing for turn. And Rangana Herath was basically just sending the straight ones and getting them out. And then in the second test, they said, "Oh, he's sending the straight ones," and then he began to turn it, and then they got the edges and they were out, and they were routed in that series. They hardly turned up, you could say. Rohit, do you think? Can you talk a bit about that series and what do you think they will be looking to do different here?
Yeah, Rangana Herat was actually a very difficult proposition for them, and we were talking about Markram. Markram in particular struggled against Herat. I think he was dismissed in all 4 innings by Herat. And Markram actually has a really big weakness against the ball turning away from him. So I think somebody like Ravindra Jadeja would be a big challenge for him. He even in the ODIs in Sri Lanka, I think he was dismissed by Akila Dhananjaya with the one turning away from Dhananjaya. Yes, many variations. So Markram has this weakness because he tends to, he has a comparatively higher backlift and he tends to hang back a bit. So I think, like you said, Herat was using the non-turning deliveries to get rid of Markram. And even the middle order, Faf du Plessis and Bavuma, both of them have struggled against balls turning away on wickets that turn a bit. So that series was a disaster for South Africa, except for Keshav Maharaj. So he was the one sole person who stood up for the team. But the batting was a huge disaster. And I think this time around in India, the pitches may not turn that much, seeing the venues where the matches are going to be held. But it will still be a huge challenge for them.
Amla was there in that series, but he's not there now. But apart from that, and I think Dumini was there as well for a game. But apart from that, can you talk about what you think will be South Africa's top 6 or 7 going into the first test this time?
Yeah, they'll definitely start with Markram and Elgar, though I really doubt if Markram will be there by the end of the series because he has been inconsistent and his issues against spin. I doubt if Markram will be there by the end of the start of the third test. But they'll start off with Elgar and Markram, and Tinus de Bruin will come, and I'm sure he'll be somebody they will be looking to bat at number 3 or number 4. And du Plessis, Bavuma and Kock should be the top 6. There is Subair Hamza, but unless they decide to go in with 7 batsmen, I don't see him starting off.
What about Klaasen then?
Right, Klaasen is a really good player of spin, but they'll back de Kock. But like I said with Markram, I don't see de Kock lasting 3 tests either because he has a huge weakness against off spin. We saw him struggle in New Zealand against Jeetan Patel, and he has in general struggled against off spin. And I think Ashwin will be a huge challenge for him. Plus, Ishant Sharma is now pretty good with left-handers around by bowling around the wicket. So I think de Kock will have a tough time. And I don't see Klaasen starting in the first test, but he might come in later.
Moving on to the bowling, which is without doubt their strongest suit. You have, I guess, we can start off with who you think will be the, 4 bowlers for the first test. Actually, maybe even 5 bowlers because you mentioned only top 6. So who do you think, you think they'll pick 4 or 5 or?
I think they'd be tempted to go with 5 bowlers, and Philander is a really good bat. So I think they'll bat deep enough with Philander in the side. And Rabada and Philander will definitely start. Maharaj and Dane Pate will also start. And I think the last choice is tricky because they might ponder going with Lungi Ngidi because the kind of bowlers who have had success in Asian conditions, Pat Cummins, Ben Stokes, Stuart Broad in recent times, they're all tall, hit the deck surface bowlers. So I think they'd be tempted to go with Ngidi, but they would also be backing somebody like Sainer and Muthusamy if the pitches is going to turn because he's a decent bat and he can turn the ball and he's a bit of an unknown for Indian players.
He's a bit of an unknown for us also. So can you tell us a bit about him?
Yeah, he's a left-arm spinner and a fine left-arm batsman. He was batting at number 5 in the recent series. And he's a really good player. He's a decent player of spin. He's again Indian origin and he's a very tidy left-arm spinner. Like somebody like Maharaj is probably more attacking, but Muthusamy is more defensive spinner. And I don't think South Africa have somebody like that because even Dane Pate is a bit on the attacking side. So I think for consistency at least, because none of their top 6 apart from Markram can really spin, they might ponder going with Sainer and Muthusamy.
Yeah, it's weird that the one unknown South African player is named Muthusamy. Just for the name, I think he should be playing.
Yeah, and he should get a CSK contract straight away.
He might have already had a CFC contract, right? We don't know. We'll know this season.
Yeah, exactly. Coming to the big fish here, I mean, perhaps the one of the finest fast bowlers in the world, Rabada. I mean, Stain. We've spoken about how Stain was devastating in India and also Asia. I mean, he had a couple of spells in Sri Lanka, which nobody who saw it will ever forget. Talk about Rabada and what you think, how you think he'll go in this series.
I think Rabada will have a really good series. He in 2015 he came in and bowled really well. It was the early stage of his career, but he had. I mean, when he came in, he performed really well for South Africa on that series. At least he was beating the bat consistently, unlike the other seamers on that tour. And since then, his progress has been phenomenal. He has come a long way since then, and he's performed in all conditions. And I think, like Dale Steyn, he can reverse swing the ball, and he's not somebody who gets tired after two spells. He'll keep running in all day, and somebody like that is invaluable in Asia. And I think Rabada will have a great series, particularly because of the way Cummins had massive success here. Similar to that, I think Rabada will be a huge threat for the Indian batsmen, particularly if it starts reversing. He can be, he can run through teams when the ball starts reversing. And he's probably not somebody who can, who turns up with the new ball and immediately starts making an impact. But as the test progresses, I think Rabada will become a real threat.
Yeah, I mean, I can easily see these all the three tests, being dominated by pace bowlers. Like you have Philander, Rabada, and if Lungisani Ngidi plays, and then for India, you have Ishant, Umesh, and Shami. I mean, I guess Ishant, Shami, and Umesh, because those Ishant and Shami will be the first two options. But I mean, these six bowlers can easily dominate the series, even if the pitches turn a bit. I mean, there's still going to be that roughness and attrition to help them get reverse swing. And Indian conditions, usually first half an hour, 45 minutes, you'll get some good swing. And then invariably after 25, 30 overs itself, sometimes the ball starts to swing again, or reverse. So, I mean, I think it's a really exciting prospect. But let's get to the spin, though. I think one of the spinners who also goes often under the radar and hasn't played as many tests in Asia as I thought he would have played is Keshav Maharaj. So, Rohit, tell us a bit about his emergence. And Maharaj is a kind of bowler who has done well in South Africa and Australia. In conditions that are traditionally not suited to spin. And in the two tests he did get against Sri Lanka, he had a fantastic series, and he took even 9 wickets in an innings in one test. I mean, in a test where he had no spin support. So, can you talk a bit about him and what you would expect from him in this series?
Yeah, Keshav Maharaj, when he came onto the scene in Australia, South Africa were playing the first test, and I think it was at Perth, and Dale Steyn was out injured after day one. So they were one bowler short. And Maharaj had such a huge impact in that test, which South Africa went on to win, because he held one end up. He picked up big wickets, like he picked up Steven Smith's wicket. And he was constantly, he was there at the other end as the fast bowler ran through the Australian lineup. So I think he played a huge role in that series. And from then, he has become a pivotal member in the South African side in Test cricket. And he had a great series in New Zealand, where in Wellington he picked up a 6-wicket haul, and he went to England and did well there as well. And as you said, in Sri Lanka he had a great role. I think Maharaj's strength is that he doesn't try too much. He just sticks to the formula. Somebody like Ashwin is often accused of trying too much, and particularly outside India. But Maharaj sticks to what works for him, and he forces batsmen to make mistakes by being this, bowling this relentless length. And I think hard work has been a huge factor. I was actually talking to South Africa's performance analyst Prasanna Raman the other day, and he was mentioning about how Maharaj was constantly working. Like, he stayed with Prasanna Raman for 5 continuous days in India. and to get acclimatized to the conditions. And he came and worked in Bangalore on the Bangalore wicket, on like just to get familiarized to what to expect in India. So I think for a player to do that when there are so many matches going on and there is very little family time, I think that shows his commitment to the game, and he has been a fantastic find for South Africa.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be quite an irony if India were to lose a test to Maharaj and Muthusamy. And that'll be like quite a reversal of sorts. It'll be a good make for a good headlines as well.
Just one thing about Keshav Maharaj is that his best performance in a test match comes in the third innings, not even in the fourth innings. If say India bat first and South Africa bat second, so the third innings that he may day 3 and 4, that's where he's at his home, at his lethal best.
Coming to India now, as I said, we're recording after the practice game. So let's get to the top headline of the day. Rohit Sharma, who is going to open the innings, got a duck in the practice game. First of all, I don't agree with this decision for him to open the innings. I'm happy that he's getting this chance, and I understand that there is a chance that it may work out. We have seen it with Virendra Sehwag back then, that makeshift opener went on to have tremendous success. But I think the very fact that many people have spoken about how Rohit's one-day technique that has got him so much success actually goes against him in Test cricket, and how his lack of feet movement in one-day cricket helps him in a way, because he gets that has that stillness of position, and then he can free his arms to score. Where in a format where the ball doesn't swing as much and where bowlers are generally trying to bowl straight, but in a format where the bowlers can afford to go to fifth or sixth stump, and where they don't really have to worry about fields where they can actually have 3 or 4 in the slip cordon, his lack of feet movement go against him. And as an opener, he's going to be in a situation where the ball is swinging the most. And I don't agree with the decision to open the batting. And I also think it's a pretty unfair on openers in Indian domestic cricket who are doing so well. But again, if I'm proven wrong and if Rohit goes on to get some big scores, I'm not going to complain. But yeah, what do you think of this decision, Ashoka? Do you think it's the right one?
Yeah, you can argue that there are some domestic openers like Abhimanyu Easwaran in the wings who have done well and who are waiting for their turn. That is a fair argument to be made. But other than that, you actually think Indian opening in Test is in quite a bit of trouble. Like, you're given Shikhar Dhawan a chance, and he is not consistently performing. KL Rahul has been given an extended run, and fairly it's a fair decision to drop him. Prithvi Shaw obviously has gotten himself banned for non-cricketing reasons. So you have Mayank Agarwal there, and with no partner, and we have been like, and Murli Vijay is on a downward slope for whatever reason, I don't know. But that has been the case with opening, like the last 3-4 years. We have had trouble. So giving Rohit a chance at this point, I'm like, why not? Because he's already at an age where I don't know when the next iteration is going to be after this for Rohit Sharma in Tests.
Yeah, I'll make my view pretty clear. I think Shubman Gill will make his debut this series.
As an opener?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, interesting.
And I think Rohit Sharma has been, there's a lot of talk about emulating Virendra Sehwag, but I think even though both are attacking batsmen, their approaches are completely different. Like Sehwag would attack from ball one in a test match, and that put the bowlers off their line and length. Somebody like Rohit, even in ODIs, he takes his time to settle down and then he goes for the big hits. And I think that settling down time is going to be very difficult for him in Test cricket when the ball moves around and he has very little feet movement. So I think that initial 20-25 balls will be very tough for Rohit. Like he was out for a duck today. And when he's opening the batting, I think that'll be a huge challenge for him. But again, it's a home series like we were talking about, and the following tests are against Bangladesh and West Indies. So I think, and like if India are prepared for one opener in Asia and probably another somebody like more technical coming in at the top in other countries, that is something which most nations are very hesitant to try, because we see teams rotating their bowlers based on conditions, but that doesn't happen with batsmen. So I think it is a possible move, open with Rohit in Asian conditions, and then try somebody else outside India. Probably even Pujara, who I think he'll have no trouble opening the innings. So I think Pujara is a somebody who can be looked at as an opener outside India, along with Mayank Agarwal. That'll allow them to accommodate an extra middle order batsman as well. So where we have an overdose of domestic talent. So that's also a possible move.
And Rohit has got for non-cricketing reason, he has got the backing of the coach and the captain, right? They want this to work, so they will not. I don't see him not opening for the home season, at least like the two series here. I think he will open for all 5 tests. They want because they had given even say Shikhar Dhawan and KL Rahul a fair bit of run, because they believed that they were the next, they were the answers to Indian opening problem. So I would see that him running into problems not in the home series, but probably away in the New Zealand series. Surely, I think that's where the rubber will hit the road.
Going to the rest of the lineup, yeah, I think the rest is fixed. I'd like to see how Vihari, bats, if he continues to bat the same way at number 6, or if he tries to get a little more of a move on at home. I think he'll play the same way. But Pant at 7, been a lot of talk about Rishabh Pant, but I guess, they just are going to play him and then take it from there, right?
I think they should back Pant. All this Shastri talk should be taken with a pinch of salt, because all said and done, they have made it clear that even though Saha is in the squad, they will prefer Pant because they see him as a long-term option. So if you see a batsman as a long-term option, at least in tests, right? He has not done badly in the West Indies series as well in the tests. Maybe ODIs and T20s, he's been rash and he has played that one reckless shot that has got his wicket. Other than that, I don't see why they should worry too much about Pant. If you're worried about number 7 and you're followed by say Ashwin or Jadeja, I think then there is a serious problem with your top 6. That's where you should be worrying. I would be more interested in seeing how Ajinkya Rahane goes through, because home series are kind of his kryptonite. Pant, I would be interested in seeing how he keeps to Ashwin and or Jadeja, and that would be his test. If he drops a few catches, because that's going to be when the ball turns and bounces, his technique would come into focus.
And like Ashoka was telling, I think Rahane is probably a bigger question than Pant, because he has struggled in Asian conditions. The long home series India had in 2016, Rahane completely lost his form. And even when he struck form in West Indies recently, he was a bit circumspect against Cornwall and Roston Chase. So I think Rahane's place is more under question than Pant. And we might probably see Rahane dropping out and Ashwin and Jadeja. With Ashwin and Jadeja, India have a long enough batting lineup. So at least at Pune, probably, where last test, I think Stephen O'Keefe and Nathan Lyon did well for Australia on a turning wicket. So India might ponder bringing in somebody like Kuldeep Yadav as a third spinner. And at that stage, we might see Rahane dropping out, because Ashwin and Jadeja can bat, and that's a very long batting lineup out there. They may not need so many batsmen. So we might see a third spinner at least at Pune.
Okay, so coming to the spin question, I mean, of course, Ashwin was left out of the tests in the West Indies, but I think leaving Ashwin out of a home series will be equivalent at least in Indian terms, will be equivalent to leaving Kohli out of a one-day series or something. Am I am I being too dramatic about it? Or?
No. I think I would be shocked more if Ashwin is dropped because the guy, at least in home conditions, has been nothing short of a miracle bowler. I was surprised that he was dropped in West Indies as well. So, given his record in West Indies, so I don't know what is going on inside. That might be non-cricketing in nature, but it would be surprising that if Ashwin is dropped or even Jadeja is dropped. But for me, they play all three tests. In India, there is no question. These guys are like, I was just watching some stats in Crickbuzz, like the 28 tests that they have played in the country, in India. They have like taken like 10,000 or 20,000 wickets at like zero economy or something like that. Like they are super, yeah, they have been superhuman, and India has won 21 of those, and India has just lost one. So I don't see any point in tinkering with that. Maybe third spinner and dropping a batsman in conditions favoring spin. That would be the way to go, rather than say play one of them.
So, as we discussed at the West Indies series review, Ashwin's batting might have worked against him there, because we spoke about how Jadeja has really improved as a test batsman. I mean, he did very well against West Indies at home, and and even in the West Indies series, I mean, he did his job very well. He was a good option lower down. He gives that quick runs. He gives you that. He gives you fielding, of course. Perhaps the best fielder in the world, the best ground fielder in the world, and then he gives you the overs and the wickets. But yes, in India, I think Ashwin is a colossus, and if you were to drop Ashwin and play Kuldeep and Jadeja, I think it'll be one of the most shocking decisions made in a long time.
And the three pitches that we are talking about, right, like Ranchi, Pune, Vizag, we have not seen historically like a green top or a swinging condition or stuff like that. So there's no logical reason why they both shouldn't be playing. They both, all logic points to Ishant, Shami, Ashwin and Jadeja as the four people that would be playing. Because, Vihari can bowl some spin as well. Like he can bowl spin. He has bowled spin in non-Asian conditions. In Asian conditions, when in day 3, 4, 5, he would be quite handy as well to take the bowling load of these top four. So we are kind of covered there, but again, this is Shastri and Kohli that we're talking about. I have no idea what they're going to do.
So in terms of the fast bowling, yeah, we have said Ishant and Shami will perhaps be the first two options. I mean, Umesh is a very good bowler in Indian conditions. He has done well, and in fact, in his last test at home, he took 10 wickets against West Indies. Even in the 2017 series against Australia, he had a fine time. At Dharamshala, he pretty much turned the game India's way. But I guess he will have to wait. Interestingly, I read an article on Cricinfo recently about how Bhuvaneshwar Kumar has been totally sidelined in this whole thing. I mean, he has had his battles with injuries, but you would think that he will be giving someone like Umesh a run for his money, given that when he went to South Africa and when he played that test, I thought that he's going to be a regular in the team. But then Bumrah, Ishant and Shami have become more like regulars. Umesh has become the reserve, and Bhuvaneshwar Kumar is now almost fifth or sixth option. Sixth option, because Navdeep Saini is now the fifth option, according to Shastri.
The resurgence of Shami and the steadiness of Ishant and has actually worked against Bhuvaneshwar rather than, say, Umesh or even Saini. I think Bhuvi does not have a great home record. If he has, I am forgetting. I think one Kolkata test against Sri Lanka, he got some wicket. Other than that, I can't remember him doing consistently well at home. I mean, it's very unfortunate that even for Umesh, I would say, not just for Bhuvi, it is unfortunate for Umesh as well, that they are up against perhaps the three as a unit, the fast bowling unit India has ever had. So breaking in would be like very, very tough unless one of these guys get injured.
Yeah, Bumrah's injury, Rohit. Do you think? I mean, I'm asking you to look at it from the South African perspective. Do you think that they'll be heaving a bit of a sigh of relief?
Absolutely. Bumrah has been fantastic, and I think all of us were waiting for his first home test. But I think South Africa will be relieved that it's not happening because as it is, they have problems against spin, a whole lot of problems against spin, and somebody like Bumrah coming in and picking up 3 wickets at the beginning, and they'll be completely tottering against spin if that happens. So I think they'll be hugely relieved that Bumrah is out of the series. But then India have a really potent bowling attack, a fast bowling attack now, and I think if Bumrah was available, India would have had a big problem about whom they would be dropping, Shami or Ishant, because I don't think they clearly have a favorite on that count. And I think Umesh and Bhuvaneshwar. Bhuvaneshwar has completely slipped out, but I was just checking his home record, and I saw that he has 27 wickets in 11 tests, which is pretty decent returns. But on a closer look, 16 of those have come at Kolkata alone, where the conditions have become more aligned to fast bowlers. So I think otherwise he has done pretty ordinary in India. In fact, very ordinary in India. So I think Bhuvaneshwar has probably slipped down the radar a bit, and Shastri and Kohli also prefer somebody who can, rack up good pace, and they have always backed the 140 plus paces. And even though Bhuvi has improved on the pace front, I think they see somebody like Saini as a young and more exciting option. And Umesh is somebody who has a fantastic record in India. And again, since 2017, he has 40 wickets in India as a pacer, and none of the other seamers have more than 18. So that's a huge difference. And I think Umesh is probably really unlucky that he has come in at a time when Shami and Ishant are virtually not droppable. So
Yeah, so I think we've pretty much covered everything except one player who we generally overlook because we take him for granted. But let's touch a bit about Kohli. I mean, not as breathtaking a series against West Indies as by his standards. Pretty, I would say, more in the average range. But Kohli at home against South Africa, I mean, is there any doubt that he remains, the biggest threat for South Africa? And in fact, the first test in Vizag, I remember that test against England where he made an absolutely fantastic double hundred, and one of Kohli's best innings. I mean, there was something flawless about most of it. And so do you see another, say, 350 plus run series for him, Rohit?
I think Kohli will have a really good series, but I think South Africa, from a South African point of view, they look to attack him with pace rather than spin, and we might see Rabada and if Engedi is playing, Engedi going for his head. We could see bouncers early on with fine leg and square leg back. They were at Kohli right through the South African series. It may not bounce that much here in India, but I think they'll look to restrict him with pace and probably go with Maharaj at the other end and tie him down with restrict his scoring areas, because somebody like Kohli, he likes to get into his rhythm really quickly. Even if it's test, he likes to get moving really quickly, and if he's denied that kind of start where he has to play out a few dot balls, and then there are fast bowlers like Rabada coming in and bowling bumpers at him, I think it'll make an impact. But yeah, Kohli is Kohli, so I think he'll have a great series again. He might make a couple of hundreds again, but I think South Africa will bowl decently to him. I don't think they'll be too worried about Kohli this series. Even if I think they'll be more worried about Pujara than Kohli. But let's see.
Yeah, Ashoka, a bit about Kohli and Pujara, I mean probably the two linchpins of the Indian batting lineup.
Yeah, but more about Kohli because Pujara has been a dependable bat in home condition. Kohli has had a couple of quiet series, but the recent exploits by Steve Smith would have kind of, and he has fallen from number one to number two in Test rankings, right? Like Steve Smith has taken over. So those kind of might be motivators for the man, saying that time to get some more hundreds or some more double hundreds. Like I was discussing this in the older pod as well, that there was a time when there was a criticism on Kohli saying that he gets hundreds and he gets outs in tests, and the guy went and hit like 5 to 6 double hundreds in the period of 18 months. So it is up to him really. Like if he decides that maybe I should be like Steve Smith is operating at a level higher than me, maybe I should try to match him and go after that kind of a consistency. He can, and these are home conditions, so these are good chance that these 5 tests for Kohli, he can get a couple of hundreds, 200-300s, and he can come back and say, I am there as well, because that race at the top, like Steve Smith has gone like 3 notches above Kohli and the rest. So Kohli would be dying to get back into the contest there.
So, okay, wrapping up, let's do what we usually do for previews. Let's get a prediction. By the way, let me just preface that by saying India have lost just 4 tests at home all decade. You have the 2 tests against England that they lost early in the decade, and then you have the one they lost to South Africa in 2010, I think, to Dale Stein's great spell. And then you have the one they lost to Australia in Pune to Steve Smith's 100. So, okay, let me start off by saying that I doubt if they will lose another test in this series. So, their weather may play a part, and also some good South African batting may play a part to get a draw. That is assuming the weather also plays a part, because you need at least a day washed out for a draw, I think, these days. But I see India winning this series 2-0. South Africa, I think, will may run them close in a test. But I think overall India will end up being too strong on all fronts for that. Especially, their bowling attack is, even without Bumrah, is really potent. So I'll go with 2-0. So Rohit, what about you?
I don't see a draw in the series. I would say India would win 3-0. But probably Pune is the best chance for South Africa to test India. And that match might run a bit close, but I don't see India losing a game here. So I think India will win 3-0.
Yeah, I'm going to say 3-0 as well, unless there is a washout somewhere. It will be very tough for South Africa. If they win a test here, that will be like really, really significant for them. But logically speaking, I think India should take this 2-0 or 3-0. I would stick to 3-0.
Okay, so you have 2 3-0s and 1 2-0, and let's see how the series goes. Thank you so much, guys, for joining, and hopefully we can reconvene again at the end of the series for a review. We usually like to have the same panelists who discuss the preview for the review, so that we can partly also rib them about how they got their predictions wrong. But jokes aside, thanks Rohit, thanks for sparing the time.
Thank you.
Thanks, and thanks Ashoka for coming along and discussing this.
Yeah, sure, man. Been a great time.
So that brings us to the end of another episode of the 81 All Out podcast. Please subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever else you prefer. It would be wonderful if you could leave a rating and a review so that more people find us. You can also follow us on Twitter at 81 All Out, and check out all our previous podcasts and articles on our website, 81allout.com. In case you're still listening, here's a shout out to our sister podcast on regional movies, whereistheotherbanana.com. You can follow them on Twitter at theotherbanana, and watch out for updates on all the movie reviews and discussions that they put out. As always, we would love to hear your thoughts on the work we do. So please send us your feedback. Goodbye.
In the air, Srijan takes it! India win! He'll come back for the second. India have won the test match. India have won the series. They're going to get back for two. India at home. Lords goes wild.